Charles, we've got another movie today that I've never seen.
What's that?
The Vanishing.
Well, it's because it vanished.
That's true. But this is the Vanishing Witnesses. Now, I'm not exactly... Should we take a loop around the park and see what's going here in Union Square?
What's not going on?
Right. I'm not exactly sure. What is this person in pajamas doing?
I don't know. At least just thank whoever you want to thank, the person who created this simulation, that the person is actually wearing clothes. Now, there's quite a few we're going to run into who are barely wearing clothes.
Of course. Sometimes favorable, sometimes not. I'm a little confused, Charles, because basically James Comer said there was a whistleblower missing. Then they said, no, we have that whistleblower. Now we're hearing that an IRS whistleblower has been fired or retaliated against or something.
Right.
What's the status with this?
Well, I think nobody really knows. There was reporting. James Comer went on Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Morning Futures and said that, and actually Maria was astounded on air. I mean, she gets like this, what?
Yeah,
but
she's been like that for a few days now.
Yeah, and she's basically, what I thought I heard Comer say was that 9 out of the 10 people who've come forward now can't be contacted. They don't know how to get them.
I heard that too.
Yeah, and that's just completely outrageous, because the whole principle of whistleblowing is that if you're either a protected whistleblower on the road to becoming a protected whistleblower, you need to have ironclad assurance that you will in fact be protected. And instead, we see graphically in the interview that we did with Nate Kane, one example of what happens when you actually try to defend the interests of the Constitution and blow the whistle. And we also have to add the context that prior to the crap weasel administration,
President Crap Weasel, Charles.
I'm not going to use the term president. He's barely a resident. The guy he certainly is non-compos mentis. In fact, if you look up, people might want to look up the definition of vascular dementia on Google.
Picture of Joe?
Well, just look, there's 7 stages of it, and you go look and ask how many of them likely apply to Joe Biden, and it's not a good thing. It means that you lost various stages, eventually complete control of your mental faculties. However, there can be a period of time before it's irreversible where you're still functioning, and you can trick people into believing
the person who's suffering obviously doesn't even realize that they are. How do you like this tuba version of Like a Virgin, Charles?
It's my phone ringing tone.
Is it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a xylophone version.
It's important that we stay on what you were talking about, because you're not disparaging Joe. You're making a real observation. Obviously, you're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. This is just opinion, but...
Actually, I was a doctor. Yesterday, I went to Costco and I got my medical degree, the same way that Joe Biden got his law degree. But anyway, it's and just to go on a little bit more on this, the problem with it is that we have under President Crapweasel, or President Crapweasel, we now have 87,000 more potentially IRS agents, and we see the degree to which, we'll talk about the Durham report later, I think in the First Amendment Forum, we see the degree to which prosecutorial discretion is abused.
Oh yeah.
And targeting is abused prior to getting 87,000 more IRS agents. So, this is Obama went on some interview.
But wait, before you get off of the IRS, Charles, this is even more important today's topic, because they're saying the IRS, they fired or moved these guys who are investigating Hunter. I mean, how could it be more weaponized than that?
Well, I thought we wanted to go down properly, but we can go in here.
But I just want to check out
I think the reason, what they're going to say, and they tried this on for size almost immediately, that it is indeed a crime for an IRS employee to start blabbing about what's going on within an
somebody's
investigation.
Taxes, right?
Yeah, so there are some very strict laws and regulations and whatever, and I think that what these guys are trying to argue, and they won't succeed, is that these people were justifiably sacked for not complying with the procedures and the applicable laws.
Yeah, right.
But that is, I mean, come on. Let's just stay. Whenever these wombats in Washington D.C. start talking about sources and methods and
cue the bullshit.
Exactly, cue the bullshit. Whenever they start talking about that, I like to go up high. When they go low, I get high and go high. But anyway, I don't get high.
If you want to get high, this is the spot.
No, I'm
That's
getting
where
high
the
right
guy
now.
was trying to pay for his music career with the weed.
Evidently, he succeeded.
Right.
But so the big picture is, the allegation is that this person in question either himself or knows of another person who can come forward and say that their evidence was given into the system, either the FBI, the IRS, or elsewhere, that where insiders, knowledgeable insiders, presented evidence, which may or may not be credible, that remember the thing about clothes and like
you got good peripheral vision, Charles.
Anyway, credible evidence that Joe Biden himself was a beneficiary and likely even running a political corruption scheme for decades.
Yeah.
That's if the guy came forward and said, look, I have evidence that James Comey stole some Lego sets, and he was hawking them. Yeah, good ones.
Millennium Falcon.
Right.
I saw it in the New York Times.
And the damages involved are at least $68.
No, it's $540.
All right, $540.
That's serious money.
Well, but I mean, I can see why you might even if James Comey were still head of the FBI, you might say, listen, once you're done with the third grade,
it's a bit much with the Legos.
Yeah, when you're done, when you graduate from the third grade in 5 years, come back and tell me more about this. But when it's with all the warning signs, all the red signals, etc., that around the Biden family, all the allegations involving family members and now Joe. The defense, we have to remember that during the campaign, the defense that Joe used was crooked as hell.
He just lied. He said we're not getting any money.
Worse, he got U.S. government resources somehow.
Right.
To
write letters.
Or coordinated to have, it sounds pretty good if 51 senior deep staters come forward and say this laptop has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. That's not so easy to get 51 former people to agree on anything.
That's true.
And to get
unless it's, hey, do you want to go to jail or no?
Right.
No. Right. Sign this letter.
Right. Exactly. So that, and then also Joe's. I never talked to my son about business. That was a big mistake. But you expect at least, I'd say, 9 out of 10 words that come out of Joe Biden's mouth are wrong. At least 9. They're very reliable. But she should have said, I never discussed business with my son, because you don't have to go that far.
But I think
don't recall.
That would have been smarter. But you got to remember, I think that this is a combination of being so convinced that nothing at all could possibly happen, with a little sprinkle of the guy doesn't know what he's saying from 1 minute to the next thrown in there.
Exactly. And this whole debt ceiling lifting negotiation, and Joe rushing off to some stupid ass G7. I don't understand.
Japan, right?
Well, yeah, he was going to go to Japan, and then all of these foreigners get, and we do as well, get upset if you schedule a presidential visit or whatever, and then at the last minute you cancel it. That's a big egg on face. And so the theory originally was that he'd go out to Australia, and when that was done, they'd have a meeting with, they're now calling the Quartet or something like that: India, China, Australia, and America.
What?
India, Australia, Japan, and America.
Sell them nuclear submarines.
Well, who knows why? But it's yet another group of, yet another excuse to pay caterers and prostitutes and drug dealers
Globalist
and
nonsense.
Talk smack, give yourself awards.
Right. Well, now speaking of awards, we're gonna get to the Durham report, but a lot of people are talking about how people won Pulitzer Prizes and Peabody Awards. I haven't heard too many people mention Emmys, but Emmys were won. Right. This is the whole mechanism, and we're seeing it laid bare, how these lies get rewarded, how they convince people that they need to keep telling them.
Well, Pulitzer is now spelled P-E-W.
Pulitzer.
And pronounced
They've stinked it up.
You can buy one here for 65
cents. Yeah, exactly. Smoke some weed out of it.
Right.
It's amazing how many these stores have opened.
Exactly. And this guy is just back from
Well, this
Biden.
is the new thing. Just like laying in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
There's a guy
Right in
right
front of the
outside my
store.
apartment building doing that.
Yeah,
and I guess they're
everywhere,
waiting
same.
for somebody to trip over them and then
Right.
call the police and say you killed them or I don't know what.
Right. Well, again, I think this is a long-standing plot,
Yeah.
frankly. I don't want to say conspiracy, it's an actual plot to destroy the United States and the West from within. And
It's working.
The plotters have been at this. If you ever read Paul Kengor's, I think it's Paul Kengor, Kengor's book, Dupes. This is something that's been going on for over a century. It's not, it's not a new idea, particularly new idea. And what the plotters are very adept at doing, you see it, for example, with Soros and the DAs.
You mean Magneto? That's anti-Semitic.
I did see that. Yeah.
We'll talk about that. I
Yeah.
can fill you in on that, how that's nonsense too.
Yeah, but but how Soros said, if we want to,
Wait, this is totally new. No, this was that Billiards Place, wasn't it?
that's long ago changed.
I know, but it's a whole apartment building now.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So
What Soros has figured out, and I think what these people figured out, the plotters, is that the way to gain control of the system in America is to get your people in the position of picking winners and losers at these elite universities.
well, at
Because if
everything.
But elite universities, you're right, and everything else. But you pick a few things that are particularly effective. If you're in control of, let's say, as they now are, 90% of all the universities in America
Yeah.
are hard left. And by that I mean they're basically communist. You then,
Charles, look, it's Grace Church.
I know. I know. I actually have very fond memories of Grace Church.
I knew you would say that, which is why I pointed it out.
It really, when you're a little kid, I mean, it's pretty big for me now, but when you're down here,
it's
look
got to
up
be
there, it's
megalithic.
Yeah, and then when you find out early on that of all people, who's the most noteworthy person who's ever married at Grace Church other than me?
Charles Ortel. Oh, I don't know.
Tom Thumb.
Oh, yeah, you've told me that before. Now, you know what's interesting is that the school inside the church in Tennessee has now filed a motion to keep the mass shooters manifesto under wraps.
Whoa.
Here's a new weed store again.
Wow. They're everywhere. I can't believe there's that much demand for this.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
No, I guess so.
But then again, it's all cash, so it could be demand for laundering. Who knows what?
Yeah. But so anyway, this you see that place over there? That's a chapel in there. So when you're a little tiny kid, I started in second grade. You have your Wednesday service, I think, in that little chapel, and you can see the stained glass. You can't see how beautiful they are from outside,
yeah.
but it's truly spectacularly beautiful inside. It's a bit fallen down, and great acoustics in there, so the music sounds good, and it's sort of a fun free-for-all there.
It's a beautiful day again today, Charles.
You must be freezing.
No, not at all.
But back to give you a sense of how ancient I am, when I went there you go, that must be taken over by Grace or something. When I went to Grace Church School, I believe the first year I went, it cost $500 for the whole year.
Wow.
Now it's $60,000.
Wow. That seems to be outstripping inflation.
A little bit.
That's crazy.
And so $500 back in 1963, I think, is when I started.
Gave them enough money to take over the Silver Spur Diner.
Watch it. There's a guy walking right in. That guy. Yeah.
So $500 in 1963.
What was a fair amount of money.
I would think you could get a Cadillac for that much.
Well,
probably.
and I remember, I think a salary of, say, $20,000 or $30,000 a year in 1963 was a lot of money. And you could go out. It's fun to go and look at old menus and stuff. And
Yeah.
You see what, a fancy meal at 21 Club was not that expensive.
I'm asking, how much was a Cadillac in 1963? I always love to hear that.
Probably 3,000, 1,900.
Oh, well, it's telling me how much it is now.
I would guess
275,000. Recent sale.
No, but in 1970.
That's what I'm trying to find out.
I remember in 1974, to give you an example, I was crazily thinking about having a car, and I remember that you could buy a very nice car for $6,000 in 1970. I mean, like a super nice car.
Yeah, I'm not having
So-
an easy time finding this right now.
And remember that between 63 and 74, you had massive inflation starting. You went off the gold standard, then you had the OPEC
Right. The
stuff, so
first oil
prices really
crisis.
moved, and they're much lower in 63.
Right.
Well, I can tell you another vignette. I remember in the summer of 1963, my parents rented a nice home, it seemed nice to me anyway, in Shelter Island. And my two brothers went on the train with my mother, and my father and I drove out. He had a station wagon, and we went into a grocery store and filled up a station wagon with food. I mean, like chock-a-block food, a lot of food. And it was less than $80.
Wow.
You know, I challenge you to do that. Fill
I
up a
don't think
station
you can
wagon.
do that
I'm talking
now.
with good food, not, you know.
Yeah. By the way, Charles, people, if they have not yet done so, should visit charlesortel.substack.com and sign up. Become a subscriber. People can choose to do that for free, and then soon there will be content for paid subscribers on there. We're just about 10 minutes away, Charles, from the conversation that's going to take place in the First Amendment Forum. And that's going to be on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsourcethetruth. We're going to talk a lot about the Durham report, your feelings about it, how it impacts your research into the Clinton Foundation, how all these news mainstream people have been saying, oh, it's a nothing burger and this and that. I want to talk about what Dershowitz had to say about it. He's such an idiot.
And we're actually, in the remaining time, we'll probably get to the outskirts of Washington Square Park, where NYU is allowing the people who just spent probably $250,000 over 4 years to come out with completely useless degrees.
More than that, I would think.
Maybe 300,000. I mean, honestly, at this point, if you want to get a degree, you should first of all find a way to do it where you don't deplete your savings, because I think the AI advancements, technological advancements, and the fact that human labor is already expensive, I mean, there are not going to be many entry-level jobs, I don't think. And so to go and lever up either your parents, or if you had money, just take it out of your accounts, or to borrow, is I think, literally suicide.
I was talking to a friend of mine, he's buying a new car. And I said, well, you know, I got this Ford Escape, but it's not fancy enough for you, because this guy likes to drive BMWs and stuff like that. He's like, nah, Ben's going to college next year and this and that. And I was like, dude, listen.
Listen to me.
Just give him $50,000 a year to not go to college. He'll learn a lot more. He was like, okay, conversation over.
But you couldn't be more right. I mean,
I think so.
So for $50,000, that's a lot of money.
Help him start a business or something.
Well, what I was going to say is, you know, on the recent trips that I've made, I'm careful how I do it, but I'm not exactly staying in youth hostels. I mean, stay in good hotels, have nice meals, and flying all over the place. It would be difficult to spend $50,000 as a student in 1 year on travel. Very hard.
Well,
I'm saying if
you're responsible.
If you're responsible, right?
Yeah, that's a big if.
Because
it could be the first weekend.
No, not if you manage to
Airbnb a mansion in Malibu, and you're like, Dad, I need another 50.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're fired.
You're no longer a kid. I'll never do that. But if you plan it ahead, plan ahead, and you're willing to live, not the way I would live in a hotel, but maybe a cheaper hotel or a hostel or something.
It took me until after college to learn this lesson. It took me losing my house and a ton of money to realize, there could be a more responsible way to do this.
7 days out every day and breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. I save a lot more money now than I did at one time. But there's more stuff to discuss, Charles, because so much of the research that you and I have been going over for the past 6 years is mentioned in this Durham report, and it's actually not a pure coincidence. Do we want to talk about that aspect?
the fact when
Filing in Arkansas yesterday that was unsealed, and how they got this information.
let's talk about that.
First Amendment form, right. But there was a filing in tax court in Arkansas that was...
I don't think it's in Arkansas. I think it's in Washington, D.C.
My bad, my mistake. But it was unsealed, right? Or something?
I don't know if it was unsealed. In fact, the
was
case...
put on the docket.
Yeah, let's talk about that in...
Okay, sorry, I don't mean to...
It's all right.
Getting ahead of you.
It's okay. It's all right. I don't think we have enough time to go over it.
Correct. We've got about 5 minutes left, Charles. So what are some of the other things we're going to be discussing?
Well, I think we should give people just a view or preview of what they're going to see in Washington Square Park. This is major mayhem now, because I think the NYU students are more or less done.
For the year, yeah.
The year, and so we have tons of bums. We may be walking by one right now.
Chef's kitchen.
Yeah, that's right. Junk pluggers.
Did you see, I don't know if it was a press conference or what, but Eric Adams was saying that he doesn't think that New York can remain a sanctuary city. Who decides that New York, it doesn't seem like the mayor, who decides that New York is a sanctuary city, and how can they change it?
Well,
look at this mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could say this on this platform. I couldn't on the interview I did with you yesterday. But I mean, we have in San Fran shit show.
Yeah.
That's our sister city.
It is?
No, I mean,
yeah, now
right?
it is.
Right, and so there's
Shitster city.
Yeah, they're the 5 boroughs of shit. Shitten Island. But it's just there's a general, and you're gonna maybe. I hope we don't see. Let's wait on the. I hope we don't see an actual crime wave as we go through here.
What are you talking about? That's all we see every time we go through there is an actual crime wave.
In particular, I'm thinking of these 3 gentlemen right here. But there's sort of I think a well-founded set of beliefs particularly amongst the beggar community here in Washington Square Park and in the city, that even if you really do something awful,
nothing's going to
happen to you.
Right.
In fact, the worst that might happen to you is that you're forced to go be deloused and get a shower and get a medical exam, get a bologna sandwich or whatever. But you'll be back out on the street, and of course,
unless you're white.
Of course, Alvin Bragg will decide to find you maybe a tearful. Who's that guy from Seinfeld up where?
Newman? Kramer?
I don't know, you were talking about Jackie somebody or...
Oh, Jackie Childs.
Get Jackie Childs in there on your defense. And, but if you don't have an investment already in New York City real estate, you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's unfortunately just the uncertainty over what regulations will ultimately go into effect here.
Right.
And the high cost, the already steep cost of living here, it's only going to get worse. Crime's getting worse.
Well, they're going to raise taxes to pay. There was an arrest on 31st and 7th right near my apartment. They were saying 3 a.m. This was a few days ago, but a bunch of migrants who were being housed. I forget what the name. It used to be the Serafina Hotel, but they changed the name. And so now it's filled up with, migrants, and they got into some drunken brawl. Somebody got stabbed.
Great.
So that's in my neighborhood.
Yeah, to be clear, I mean, I love the people who say, America's a nation of immigrants, and therefore all immigrants should come in for free.
No.
That is not the history in this country at all. There were very strict curbs on immigration.
Right.
And it was only until the early 1900s that certain groups were allowed in, and in theory, my mother's parents, in practice, were naturalized. One was Portuguese, one was Brazil, but they were naturalized lawfully.
Right, and they all were like, oh my God, America, we love it. We better learn English and learn the customs and everything. But Charles, with that, we're going to take a break right here, and we'll be back in just 5 minutes. People can join us on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It's so important that people become sponsors. Join us in the First Amendment Forum. We'll be right back. And thanks to everybody who is sponsoring the show, making it possible to keep bringing you these programs.